What does it mean to belong? Does it come from a place, a person, a version of yourself being reflected back in someone else's eyes? Is it home? Is it identity? Or is it simply access to spaces, to privilege, to a world most could only dream to inhabit? Is belonging something external? Or does it begin with knowing yourself, knowing your history, where you came from, and the stories that shape you long before you can name them? What if the world you were born into rejects you? What if you don't feel connected to the very place you're told you're supposed to belong? Do you conform to survive, or do you choose your own path, even if it means being cast out? And how much of that path is already decided for you? Race, class, wealth, gender. How do these categories position us in a social hierarchy that we didn't build? Do they shape the way we view ourselves? And most importantly, can we ever truly break free from their grip? As someone who spent most of her life navigating these questions, I know how heavy they can feel, how lonely and how necessary it is to name them. In this episode, we will be interrogating life from the margins to create a space where we can make room for complicated truths, tender reckonings, and the kind of conversation that doesn't always have clean conclusions. Today, I'm joined by Sanibel. She's a writer, a cultural critic, and the author of To Have and Have More. Her debut novel explored the contradictions of privilege, the ache of invisibility, the soft underbellies of elite spaces, and the unspoken violence of being seen as other. Please help me welcome Miss Sanibel herself and the author of To Have and Have More. I'm so excited to have this conversation with her today because we're going to be diving into some very, very deep topics. Sanibel, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on the book, which you finished recently. And I know you have lots of opinions, so I want to get into it.
Yes, for sure. So let's start with you first. How have you been? What has been going on in your life?
I've been full throttle marketing this book and writing my second one. So that has been, I'm on the social media warpath. I'm making a lot of content and I'm trying to get all my friends that are local in New York City to come to my two events, which are on the day of the launch, April 15th, and then also May 1st in Chinatown. So I've been keeping busy.
Okay. How are you doing all of it? How are you managing it all?
It's a lot of multitasking and a lot of moving parts, but I've been a freelancer doing like journalism, but also my other side hustle is college essay advising. And so like I kind of had a career that's a lot of moving parts for many years now. So it honestly doesn't feel that different from my normal.
Yeah. I totally get that. I mean, from what I've read about your work and your history and what you do as a career, I see a lot of that being translated into this book. Would you say that a lot of it is literally inspired by your personal experiences?
It's very much inspired by my real life. It's a campus novel and it takes place at a boarding school, which is very loosely based on my actual school I attended, which is in New Jersey. It's called Lawrenceville School. But I would say probably the biggest difference between my anti-heroine, Emery, and myself is that I really loved my experience at school. And over the years, I think you become wiser and you learn more about race, and the political climate changed tremendously between the 2010s and now. And so I think looking back in retrospect, there are maybe cracks that I can see about my experience, but at the time you have kind of that blissful teenage lack of self-awareness that in some ways is really good as survival armor.
So how has your view on the world changed from then and now?
I mean, going from age 16 to 30 certainly makes a big difference for anyone. But I think that it's not just minorities and people of color that discuss race now. I think the conversation has become so expansive. And once white people are brought more into the fold around like 2020, George Floyd, people's vocabularies increased. And I think that shift has been immense for the types of discussions we have about race. And even there was a huge boom, and there's since been a bust in books that were bought by publishers about race. And it was the dark side of it is that it's kind of like a trend, and then it's over, and then it will peak again after something bad. So I think that's very dismaying often. But when you're in the trend, it is always so gratifying to see different people's voices get heard.
I love that. So you did grow up here in America?
I grew up primarily in New Jersey, in Princeton.
Your parents are Korean and Taiwanese, correct?
Yes, my mom is Korean and my dad's Taiwanese, but they grew up both in the US.
Okay. So what has your experience been like personally as an Asian American growing up in New Jersey and being born into the background that you're in? Have you experienced like directly like the racism and the classism and all of the topics that you've discussed in this book yourself?
Yes, definitely. And I think in a way, my character, she's adopted into a very wealthy white family, and that is not my experience. I'm not adopted. But I think in a way, like I've used the fact of her being adopted as sort of like a loose proxy for my own experience. It's, for the sake of storytelling, it's kind of easier to situate her like that, to explain she's extremely assimilated and she's born into this world. And in my own experience, I don't think it's quite as seamless. I think I'm much more in touch with my Asian heritage than this character ever becomes. But I think that as a storytelling tool, to put her in this situation and kind of extrapolate from my own experience, it does make it helps you get into the story faster. Because if I were, say, to use my exact circumstance, I would have to explain, and my mom grew up in Virginia and my dad grew up in LA, like it just kind of gets you bogged down in the details. Whereas what I want you to understand is really, this is a young Asian girl who already fits in. So this is not going to be a story about, oh, she comes to school and she's so in awe of the money and this is such a scary world. Like, she gets it, she's with it, she fits in, she has friends. So then what are the problems for someone like that? And I think that's a story that I haven't really seen, and that's why I wanted to tell it.
Right. Well, I think it's pretty hard, right? Because throughout the entire book, well, first of all, it was so hard for me to actually understand how not Asian she is, right? We got into this scene in the book where I found out that she didn't even know how to make rice. And it was hard for me to it was really hard for me to actually comprehend that, because I was born in Laos. I moved to the States in 2005. And I've met a lot of Asian American children and kids. You know, I'm friends with them and they know how to make rice and they were adopted. And for me is, okay, so does Emery's parents, do they not eat rice? Do they not make rice? And if they do eat rice, do they make it the instant rice? They don't have a rice cooker at the house, or do they cook their rice on a pot? That was so hard for me to comprehend.
Questions?
Emery, please tell us.
So funny. No, I'm so curious because, like I was saying earlier, like outside of my immediate MFA classmates and my friends, you're the first person who I've talked to that's read the whole thing. And what I find is that everyone, with all fiction, you project onto it. And what the reader takes away often says more about themselves and their own experience and their own opinions. So for you to kind of hone in on that one detail and the rice to be so demonstrative to you, that is really satisfying for me, because I was trying to make a point about how removed from her culture she is. And it's not her fault, but how would it be artificial for her to suddenly get into it the way she is in Taiwan? It's just it's a difficult balance for adoptees.
You know what is the most intriguing part of the entire story for me was that not only is she far removed from her culture and her heritage itself, but she's also far removed from the world as well. There's many times while I was reading the book that I wanted to root for her. I wanted Emery to be my favorite character, and I wanted her to actually transform. Again, not wanting to give too much of the book away, but I really see that, can you truly escape the wealth and the class that you grew up into. Because if you have been conditioned throughout your whole life to become this person, and you have the weapons and the games that you play, like that will carry with you throughout your life. But yet it's almost sad, really, to see that there's still this void that will always be there. Because so it brings me to the question: is wealth enough if you don't know who you are and you're not connected to yourself spiritually?
I think it's not a spoiler to say that I certainly don't think wealth is enough, and that is a big message in the book. But you talk about how she's at a remove often, even like from her own actions and her own behavior, and I think that does have to do with her immense privilege. But there was something in the notes that you sent over where you were saying, like, I'm going to be honest, like I really couldn't stand her in this moment, and that cracked me up because I very much wrote her to be an anti-heroine. Like, she's someone who I'm glad you want to root for her. Like, you want to root for her, but you can't, because often she's making such calculated or selfish or just inconsiderate, let's say, decisions. And you watch her and like, this is not someone that you want to be friends with.
So unconsciously and naively, like, it's obvious that she's not being intentional about hurting people. So I feel a lot of empathy for her because of that. And I don't know, like, how are we supposed to feel, right, about rich kids who are so far removed from reality in some sense, right, quote unquote. But at the same time, like, they didn't decide to come into this world, to come into that family. And what is the solution to that then? If they lack empathy for other people, but at the same time, granted, unless they're being destructive, then why should we not? Because I just feel like society has so much jealousy and underlying hatred towards rich people. But I just feel like it's incorrect.
I mean, I certainly don't propose a solution in this book or in real life for these topics, but I do, when you're saying that you feel for her at times, right? Because some of it is conditioned and sort of out of her control, the circumstances that one is born into. But I do feel like high school is sort of the last time that you feel empathy for these rich kids. And it's sort of like a ticking clock, because once you become aware of your privilege and you understand how you're hurting or exploiting other people, and you have agency in your life to behave otherwise or make different decisions, that starts, I think, when you're in college, and certainly when you're in your 20s. So it's sort of important for me as an author with the story I'm trying to tell. It's set in high school because you can sympathize with the kids and they can be humanized. And there's that benefit of the doubt that if things were otherwise, circumstantially, maybe they wouldn't act like this. Like, maybe there's a good person underneath all the manipulation and exploitation. But at a certain age, you have to take responsibility for your actions, and it doesn't matter if you're so privileged. And I think that by the end of the book, you're running out of goodwill for her.
Oh, again, no spoiler, but I wanted to, to be quite honest, like, to root for her and to see that something good will come out of it. But I didn't think that she actually learned from her lesson or anything like that. Like, she still held on to, the privilege that she has. Like, she will always have those tools in her arsenal to use all the time, right? And that is something that no one can take away from her unless her parents become poor or bankrupt or something like that. And look, I think it was a choice that you made, that there's not going to be any, tell me if I'm wrong, that there shouldn't be any like climax or like a sense of climax or release from it, that there shouldn't be a good ending or a bad ending, and that you wanted it to be almost like a natural occurrence of human evolution throughout it, and we're only getting like a small part of it, and it feels very, very real.
I think some people could be disappointed by the ending. I love a misdirection. And I hate tropes. I hate when I can predict where a book is going and it's just sort of following the stereotypical plot. So I try not to write tropey books. And so like I didn't want you to see where the next turn was. And it wasn't necessarily about like realism because I wrote several different endings, like a really splashy ending that is happy, a splashy ending that is bad. Like along the way over the years that I've been revising this, I got so many different pieces of advice about making it more like salacious or like put in a murder or put in a pedophile or put in like these things that will just like, I think that advice was to help me sell the book. And there's certain pieces that like I took and I incorporated more like say microaggressions or more like offensive language that like rich people would use to speak very callously about public school kids or whatever it may be. And like I think those are good uh, tools to like bring in more action. But like ultimately this was not supposed to be a murder mystery. So I'm not going to have something like, and then the best friend kills her at the end so that there's like this big bang ending. Like it's not that kind of book.
Oh my God, I wanted an emotional release so bad throughout the entire book. I'm like, oh my God, give it to me, please. Let me feel sorry for somebody. Like, somebody please turn into a good person. But then I realized, I'm like, you know what? What if this is reality, right? Like, we're still at this stage now in society where like you mentioned, that we're just now starting to actually interrogate the important topics that is going on in the world, like racism, classism, wealth, and all the things. And it's like we don't know the direction that we're heading just yet. And I think we're all are doing our parts on it. And I think this book is actually like a true depiction of what is really going on in the world. And you feel like I think like the choice itself was like you didn't actually like propose any solution, right? Like that's so I guess where I'm going with it is it almost feel like there are a lot of moments while reading the book like, oh my God, like this is absurd. I know it's like a satire and I'm like, do they actually fucking like behave this way? There were so many times while reading the book that I was rolling my eyes and I was infuriated. I was like, oh my God, bitch, why are you acting like this? I was like, I can't stand your ass. Like, I literally wanted to punch the pages. It was like,
but that makes me so happy because I love like a good villain, right? Those are always, it's not the character that I like relate to per se, but they're the one that I remember when I finish the book, right? So for you to have these kind of reactions, that like warms my heart. But
I appreciate that because I wanted to only have positive things to say, but it's not negative per se. It's
not at all. I think that as a writer, the thing that would probably wound me the deepest is if someone was like, it was fine. I don't really remember. Like if they're indifferent to it, if it didn't like dredge up any emotion, it didn't make you like think of any period when you were bullied or something. Like if you were just kind of like, yeah, I read that, but I don't remember what happens. Like that would be like a knife to the heart. But like for you to have strong feelings about it, like that's amazing.
Look, I was going through it, reading the book. It was like, oh my God, I'm rooting for her. Oh, she's gonna become a better person. Like, I'm here for it. And then boom, she did it again. And I'm like, okay.
It's funny how you said like a minute ago, like you really wanted to see someone like improve, like become a better person, like transform morally, perhaps. And you're right. I do kind of like, I keep skirting that. And I think that we all like love a redemption story. And like I told you, I wrote like many different endings where it could have gone, but I wanted to do what felt like the character would actually do. Because I think like when you kind of shoehorn in something that's just to appease the audience, like it's not satisfying for anyone. So like I thought a lot about like redemption and who gets to be redeemed and what like the function of that is in most stories. But I feel like a lot of the stories that we love that are about redemption just end early. And if like the camera kept rolling, we would see that person dip again. It's almost like drug addict stories where it's like you, even the positive ones that end on a hopeful note and the person gets clean, you still wonder like, will they stay clean though?
So who was your favorite character? Who did you enjoy the most writing? Like, who are you rooting for? Like, did you have any favorite character that you were like, that you enjoy writing? Where you're like, I really like her and I want her to do well.
Okay, rooting for.
What's your favorite character?
I almost feel like we can't speak in those terms. It's like rooting for them to like become like a whole meaningful, self-aware person. Like that's not really what it's about. But I think the character that was really fun for me to write is when the main character is a freshman, there's a senior girl who's Korean and she is cool and she's popular and she's pretty. And the thing that amazes my very whitewashed main character is that this Korean girl manages to be all of that while still being like very Korean. And she like speaks on her phone to her mom in Korean and she brings Korean snacks to tennis practice. And her social capital does not come from distancing herself from her Asianness. And that is like mind blowing to the main character. So I think kind of writing someone like that and then being able to show how she's perceived through the eyes of someone who's always been taught that to accrue social capital, you need to repress anything that is going to be seen as Asian. That was like an interesting exercise for me.
Yes. I mean, I've actually dealt with that in my own personal life as well, right? Like having moved to America and being an immigrant, it's really interesting because I wanted so badly to be an American, to kind of pander after what white culture is. I wanted to speak like them. I wanted to dress like them. And then I realized that the further I got into advancing myself in society in America, that the far removed I become from my family. And that is such a heartbreaking thing. And it brings me to this deeper question, which is like, where do we get this from? Like, where is it? Like, where do we pick this up that to be more, to be accepted by the American culture, right? And to be, sorry to say, but whiter, right, is to grant you access to places that you would have had otherwise if you were to stay who you were and stay to your roots.
I think the reason it persists is because it's really rewarded. If there were not results, then people wouldn't keep doing it. And only like very recently, it's almost like such a mind warp for me now. I'm 31. The way that I grew up and the way that being Asian was perceived is so different than it has been in like the past 5 years. And now it's like rah rah, like talk about it a lot. Like you get social credit for embracing your roots, and all my friends that are not Asian are eating at Korean restaurants, and everyone is panchan and like things that were the opposite of cool when I was growing up. And you almost have to like I'm code switching between being Asian and having some proxy whiteness. And now there's like a third thing where now I have to act like there was never a time when I was taught to be embarrassed of being Asian. And it's such a bizarre like transition. And like I see this with Asian or like half white, half Asian actors, and they go by a name that sounds white. But now they're being cast for all like these Asian productions, and they're talking about like embracing, and like it's so wonderful to have a viewed part of a story that's related to my roots. But it's like the reason that they picked a name that totally obfuscates the fact that they're Asian is because only until recently, like they wouldn't be able to get a job if their name sounded Asian. So it's like we're at this crossroads and I don't know which way it's going to go. Like it seems like we could be back for a dip. Like they're not going to be buying up these minority stories for much longer. There's already been like a downturn. So I think that if you're an artist that sells their work, you can like think forever about these and never come up with an answer. So I'm just going to continue to write about things that are interesting to me, that are fun and entertaining for me to write, and hopefully thoughtful. But trying to guess like what kind of story will they want to buy from me next, I feel like that's really futile.
I really connect with that a lot. I mean, I think the challenge is like, especially in the entertainment industry, is that you are always being exploited for your story. And you have to be very careful, okay, that you stick to who you are, right, in your heritage, and not let somebody else come in and monopolize on what it is that is much more valuable than money itself.
But I think that in some ways it's also like a weapon, right? Like at a certain time you can use your story and your heritage because you're riding like a trend. And it's a question of like, am I being self-exploitative then? And it's very hard to answer.
Got it. Let's get into your next book. What are you writing about? And when is it going to be out?
My next book, there's no pub date set yet, but hopefully fall 26. And it is another satire that also touches on class, privilege, and wealth, but it's more about taste. And it's very loosely based on, I worked in the magazine world for a while, and my beat was commerce journalism. So that means writing like roundups and reviews and the 10 best vacuum cleaners to buy, right? And that's more like workaday, like household appliances, but there's also all of these shopping articles that are about like trends, micro trends, and beauty and skincare, and all these things that they kind of come ancillary to the actual culture, but they're reflective of the culture. And so when people are shopping, like we always say shopping is political, you're making choices, right? Shopping is also a manifestation of your taste, and taste is like purely a class thing. Like people with good taste, people with refined taste, like that is just code language for different ways to describe money, whether it's like old money or nouveau riche or whatever it may be. But my second book is about an editor that works at one of these magazines and how she is obsessed with her own taste, thinks that she has the most amazing taste. She's an Asian woman who is really, and it's set like in the past few years, so I'm allowed to use language like woke and stuff, which I did not use in my first book. But now, like I said, we have such a better vocabulary to express these ideas. And this magazine editor thinks of herself as like super woke, and she's always like, let's make sure we're being size inclusive in this bathing suit roundup. But at the same time, she has underlings that are her direct reports, and they're young women, some of them of color, and she's so mean to them and she bullies them horrendously. And she does not see the hypocrisy of the fact that she is like this elevated woman of taste who's so woke, but she's a massive bitch to the people that have no power beneath her.
Actually, you know what? I've met a couple of woke bitches before, and they're not as nice.
No, everybody has. It's a type, and she's very and this is where the character, my first book, Sean, who you like so much, they're sort of sanctimonious, and they think kind of, they're more educated about issues than you are, that they can like tell you how to live and tell you everything that's wrong with you, and they're kind of like abusing some sort of like knowledge that they have to act as if they're like morally superior.
Yes, for sure. I've definitely met a lot of those people too, and they can actually use that as a way to kind of control people at the same time. What do you want people to get out of this book?
When people read To Have and Have More, it's not that I want them to become rich kid apologists. I don't think the takeaway is like, oh, rich kids are so sad and we should feel bad for them. I think, if anything, it's really a story about agency. And it certainly applies to you if you're rich, but even if you're not, it's like the way that you're conditioned and you're brought up, and the status, whether that's like an Ivy League school or money that you're striving for, like really think about why you want it. Like, are you going after those things because you've reflected and that's what will bring meaning to you in your life? Because like, that's why I'm an author. That's what I enjoy doing. That's what makes me feel fulfilled. Or are you chasing after the things in your life because you've been told like, this is what beautiful, rich, successful people have. And you're just trying to like grab each puzzle piece so that you can act as if you have a beautiful, rich, successful life. So I think it's really about not like living life on a hamster wheel, right, and being deliberate, right, with the choices that you make in your life. I think it's kind of shocking how many people just do things because it is the normal life to live, and you like get married at a certain time and have kids and you buy a house and then you move to the suburbs, and like all these things that you do almost like unconsciously. And as you're making the decisions, you're unhappy with them, and you know, like, I don't really want to have kids, but I'm going to have them anyway. And it's like, when you start to like feel that resistance, like at least entertain it.
Yes. So you don't want people to just follow the trends or follow society, just aimlessly, just going after something without actually knowing who they are. You want them to actually interrogate what it is that they're doing in the world and how it's actually impact other people. And I really actually see a lot of that being confronted in this book itself. So one last question would be, what's the point, right, of having wealth, of having materialistic things, of actually following trends and getting approval from strangers and people that you don't know, even your own family members as well, if you don't have yourself? So my question is, when you do discover who you are, what do you think that will lead to for people individually?
I think some people have false starts where they start to like look themselves squarely in the face and understand who they are, but then they don't actually want to realize that they want something other than the status quo. It's easier to like bury that and not admit that you want something different than what people expect you to want. So the like secondary character, the antagonist in my book, is a girl who is Asian and she is middle class. And I created her as a foil to my like very wealthy, rich private school type of girl who's the main character, because it's not like one girl is good and one girl is bad. It's a girl who comes into the school as a middle class student, and she's more of that traditional character who's like awed by the money and she's intimidated by these rich kids that speak like grown-ups and whatever. And this girl, Lila, she is here to get a good education. That's why her parents like scrape together the money to send her to this excellent school. But she gets what I usually refer to as like the secondary education that prep schools give you. And that's not what you learn in the classroom. Like that's what you learn about the way the world works and who gets to have power, and like why do kids that have family members on the board not get subject to the same disciplinary action as kids who are middle class and on scholarship at this school. You get treated differently because there's a caste system. And this girl, Lila, she does well this school academically, but what she does especially well is like internalize the codes and the hierarchies, and she learns it, and she becomes something very different than if she had, say, stayed at her public school. And I don't want to give too much away right now, but I think like you see that it's not like rich kids are bad and rich people are bad. It's more about how like status corrupts and power corrupts. And once you have it and once you speak that language, it's often those kids who feel sort of less than and who came in not having like the same amount of money as like the richest kids at the school, and they sort of feel inferior, and they shouldn't, because like this is 1% kids of 1% parents. But like for the rest of their lives as middle class kids feel like I need to measure up to that. I need to get there. And so rather than pursuing perhaps things that they're actually interested in, they're like, it's now I need to get rich. Like I've seen what the world looks like and I need to be part of that. And they sort of take away the wrong thing from their education, which is, okay, I don't want to be left behind. And they join up into essentially this rat race that never ends.
Well, I will say this though. Lila is definitely my favorite character after having read the book, because I mean, I'm Lila, right? I'm the one who goes into this, into the world and actually having to learn how the world actually works and being surrounded by rich people. And I realized that, you know what? It's better to actually having earned something than actually, having been given it, where you have to go out into the world. Like, I mean, we haven't covered the fact that Emery have this sense of entitlement where she just go out and snatch whatever it is that she wants. But Lila, on the other hand, is so afraid to demand of the world what she wants. But through her demand, it's not verbal exactly, but it's through her hard work and dedication to her parents, a commitment to her life itself and what it is that she's doing and her passion that actually will truly get her far. So, Sanibel, what is the book about?
When I describe To Have and Have More to people, I explain that it's an anti-heroine led novel, and it's set at a elite prep school. But what makes it different than maybe your typical campus novel is that this is a character who was born to succeed in this world. So she takes private tennis lessons and she belongs to the country club. And when she begins at this prep school, she already is friends with all of the other 1% kids. So given that this is the setup, you might wonder what type of conflicts does she encounter? And it's not Who am I going to sit with at lunch? Who's going to take me to the prom? Like that is pretty much already set for her because her milieu takes care of itself. And she encounters a different set of problems, which is realizing that she might not be happy with this world and with the people that she's grown up with and is expected to consort with for the rest of her life, like through college, through her jobs, through her marriage, into retirement. And what does she do when she's faced with the fact that she's not happy with this world, but she doesn't know what any alternative could be?
That is insane to me to think about because I kind of see in the story too, right? Like with Lila, is that she plays the game really well in the book. She's not this innocent girl that I thought she was when I first met her. Like she actually is the one who have had like the most transformation throughout the entire book.
And I think the question is maybe like these students that are not one percenters and they come into the school and they learn the game and they're not defeated by it, right? Like they pick it up quickly. They play it even better maybe than some of the people who have grown up in this world. Is that a blessing or a curse? Like, are we happy that she's transformed in this way? Or do you kind of have regret about like the innocence she lost? Maybe she would have lost it anyway in high school or or in college or when she got her first job. But it's like, you just wonder that when you're 15 and you're surrounded by this level of wealth that has such an impact on you, is that a good thing? Like if you're a middle-class parent wondering, should I send my kids to prep school? I really think you should think twice.
Wow, that's a statement. That's definitely a statement right there. I mean, what's really interesting is that, I was rooting for Lila throughout the entire book as well. And what I see is I feel like Lila had more fulfillment and internal comfort, a sense of self-knowledge that cannot be bought, right? And I see that a lot of the rich kids, they're always playing these games the entire time, trying to. It's almost like nobody in the kids in the kids in the book, none of them were being genuine. And that is such a lonely way to live, really. And it's like, so do you ever truly have something real in your life? So my question is it worth it having wealth if you don't have real?
I don't think it necessarily has to be mutually exclusive. I think it's just almost this strange like obstacle or barrier that you do have if you're rich, because what the main character Emery has to imagine is like, if you're told every day you have the type of life that everyone else wants, like you already have it. So when you're thinking about like, okay, I want to leave this, I want to walk away, it's much more difficult when you're told that that's what everyone else wants. Because like, okay, I'm already at the finish line in this like race of life. Why would I walk back to the start line? And I think like that makes you kind of just like shrug your shoulders and go along with it because you believe it because it's said so much. And you do see like the people striving to have what you have, which makes you value it also. And I think like one of the things that Emery and her boyfriend at one point argue about is just because other people value something does not mean that it has inherent value. And I think that's like a concept that many people never grasp.
I want to challenge that thought just a little bit, which is that, I mean, even if she were to choose a different direction, right? She will always have her parents as a cushion, a security cushion. Like she will never truly be homeless or poor. So she will always have the advantage at the end of the day if she decided to say, and this could go for many rich kids too, well, you know what? I want to go live as a homeless person for a little bit. Well, that is a very different experience than actually being homeless, because you can always return home to your mansion and your wealthy family. And then basically it's almost like you're role playing, like you're just almost like putting on a costume and you can just take it off and hang it up. It's different than somebody who's actually can't feed themselves. I see you smiling, so I know you got something good.
It's funny that you mentioned it like that, where it's like you're cosplaying poor and it's kind of romantic and it's fun to slum it, right? Like this is just like Shakespeare's Prince Hal. And I actually, for a while, I really wanted to call the book Princess Hal, but I think that's a little bit alienating to some people. And I think in a way, when Emery is having this burgeoning friendship with Lila, there's an element of what you're describing in it, where it's like, okay, let me see what it's like to be friends with this like middle class fobby girl who's would never be accepted in my real clique. And it's again, it's like we keep talking about like different like strata and hierarchies, and it's like her real friends are up here, and then Lila gets put down here, and Lila understands that that is what the reality is, and she accepts it. And I think when you get older, you learn I shouldn't accept treatment like that. Like that is so unacceptable and this is not fair. But when you're in high school, I don't think you have the wherewithal to like think about life that way. And with the way Lila sees it, it's like, oh, this popular pretty girl wants to be friends with me. And like I'll accept whatever kind of treatment she throws my way. And it's like devastating that we allow ourselves to be treated like that if there's something that we think we can get from someone else. Because it's not like Lila is totally selfless in that relationship either. Like there's something that Emery bequeaths, even if it's just like an aura of coolness that she likes being part of.
I mean, what I find interesting is that Emery didn't even, not even once, show a moment of appreciation or gratitude from what she's actually getting from Lila, which is something that can't be bought, right? Like true human experiences, true friendship, also a deeper understanding into where you came from. I mean, I'm about to give the book away, so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, it's like none of her friends are honest or real. She hates being a part of that environment. She hates playing the game, but yet she still have her foot in, one foot out. She's decide where she wants to be. And at the end of the day, she will always choose herself, which is not sure most rich kids do that, herself over something that is much more authentic and more honest. It's always transactional.
Right. And it's because there's a risk inherent in her choosing Lila, right? Like she's giving something up. And I think like the way that you say she never showed gratitude towards Lila or valued their friendship really, even though she really enjoyed spending time with her and felt this connection that she did not feel with anyone else. But I think that in Emery's psychology is rooted the fact that she really believes she's giving a lot more to Lila than Lila's giving to her. Like I think she like deep down believes that. And I think if you feel that about someone, like there's no way to ever have an equal friendship. And I think like that, and that is so tragic because it's kind of the reverse. It's like, you know, when you adopt a dog and you're like, I thought I was giving a dog a home, but they actually made me a better person or whatever. Like it's almost like that where Lila gives so much to Emery and enriches her life so much, but somehow Emery still perceives it as I'm giving so much to this unpopular girl.
I guess so. The only solution to that is for Lila to become much wealthier than Emery, for her to actually take Lila seriously. And what it also brings me to is the Asian parents trope, right? Which is like, well, you know, there's also a social hierarchy. There's also a very fixed and rigid hierarchy in the Asian family households as well, which is like, they never apologize. They're never wrong. You will listen to what they say. They never say sorry. And it's like, I can't seem to break through that, where it's like, when will we actually ever have this equilibrium where we're both just seeing each other eye to eye?
Yeah, it's so deeply ingrained in Asian culture. And I think maybe that's one of the things that makes it hard for me to, like, I didn't want to write tropey Asian characters, but that trope is a trope for a reason, you know, like it's very real. And what you were just describing kind of made me think of how my Korean grandma lives in this building with a lot of other Koreans. And there's a woman that's like around her same age. And I think they even like maybe grew up in the same town in Korea or something. And someone said to her, like, Grandma, why don't you befriend that woman? And then my grandma was like, no, that woman is educated. I can't be friends with her because my grandma is not. And it was like, I wouldn't even like say hello to her. Like she looks down on me and I look down on myself. So I'm not even going to like pretend to try to have friendship with her. And I was like, that's sad. Like when the hierarchy is so internalized that you are already like presuming what they think about you. And you're right. That woman has no interest in being friends with my grandma. But it's like, I'm like, you don't even make the overture because
But
it's like law.
well, what are they going to connect on, really? I mean, talking about me personally, which is if I am much more intellectually advanced and economically advanced and socially much, I have more social currency than the men or the friends that I'm dating. And I've experienced this my own self with someone who've actually have struggled. Okay. And I still approach the world in this way, right? If I'm meeting with someone and they perhaps maybe they might not be able to provide me as much value in order for me to advance in the world, then I don't have the natural desire to be around them. If I can engage in a conversation intellectually with them, or if I, don't feel like they're going to bring enough value to me, even though the friendship or the relationship is real, I am like, well, what am I going to do with this? Because at the end of the day, my future is important and where I'm going is important. And what are your thoughts on that? Experience this yourself, where you've also carried this tactic in a way where you go out into the world and you do see yourself subconsciously, going out and interacting with people in this way as well.
Right. I think the calculations and the judgments, they happen in your unconscious, right? You can't help but measure up people in that way. I suppose in this example with my grandma, though, it's sort of like what made me saddest was the way that it's one thing if that woman snubbed her and said, I don't talk to people like you. You're uneducated and I'm educated. But it was more that like my grandma already came to the conclusion that and maybe there's a chance that they would have nothing to connect on. But it's like, if you're both immigrants that live in this apartment building in DC and you're from the same town in Korea, there's something you can connect over. Like, even if one person's educated and one person's not. And given what education was for women at that time, it's not like she's a PhD. I think when we say she's educated, it's like she went to high school. So I actually think there's like a lot that they could connect over. But yeah, I think it's a lot of To Have and Have More is about when you're sizing people up, like how much of your like percentage of relationships is purely based on what can I get out of this? And like, I think in the book, my critique is that 100% of these kids' relationships are like that. And it's sort of like, it dilutes your life because Lila is probably the most enriching friendship that Emery has. And if she approached it purely with that type of mindset, she would never even have become friends with her. Or she would never have like let the friendship go down the winding route that it ultimately goes down.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that question, but then you've already given me an answer to it. That it's like, so if we continue to approach society and people in the world in this way, how does that impact us as people?
It's almost like, how mercenary are we going to be? And maybe I'm calculating who the most useful friends are to me in my head, but it's different when we can speak it aloud. And I say, oh, like if it's socially acceptable for me to say, that person will not give me, they have only 100 followers on Instagram and they're not even published. And like, if I start thinking like this and then vocalizing it, like, I feel like that's where then we're just in like an outright caste system. And so many things that we are in are already like low-key subtextual caste systems that are like rules of gatekeeping and like different the way people dress can determine whether or not like you accept them or not. They don't even know what you're assessing, but it's like you have to have the right this and the right that. So I think that if we're going to be brazen with like allowing people to judge people on superficial things, then we'll all end up with the sort of ending that Emery gets, which is not a happy one. It's like one that's based on status and outward appearance. And I don't think that these type of people end up with like meaningful and fulfilling lives.
I think, I mean, I don't truly believe that this is something that can be completely eradicated.
No.
social behaviors is so primal. The hierarchy, the comparisons that we have among each other. But I think what this conversation and this book itself does is to interrogate it and bring it to the conscious so that you can sit and think about who you are, where you come from, and most importantly, what you choose to do in the world and who you choose to be in the world. And don't just take anything that's being presented to you, right? And actually interrogate that, sit with that, question and pick pieces of it that you feel is valuable and that it speaks to you so that you can show up to the world more and authentically and genuinely so that you can have a much more fulfilling life.
I like that you use the word interrogate a lot.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. I wonder why. I mean, I have been reading this book and that word has been imprinted into somewhere right here in my mental faculty. So, yeah, I guess for the readers, they'll find out what interrogate is when it, yeah. Sanibel, you have this saying you can't talk about class without talking about race. Can you elaborate on that? What does that mean?
Okay, if I frame it in terms of to have and have more, right? I think it's easier to talk about it in somewhat of a tangible way. When I was writing this, I was really inspired by Nell Larson's book, Passing, which is all about racial passing. It's a Black woman who looks white, and she can move through the world as a white person as long as no one knows that she's Black. And it kind of just goes to show you that people treating you badly has less to do with like what they actually know or think about race and then being able to see it visibly, right? Like if they're ignorant of the fact that you're Black, then you might as well not be Black. That's how like blind they are. And so when I was writing this book, I was thinking about the idea of money allowing you to pass to a certain degree. And so Emery looks other. She's very visibly Korean, and being a minority in the US immediately like knocks you down at least one class, if not more. But since she's elevated by money, it's kind of an equalizing factor. So when her peers and when her peers' parents are looking at her and judging her, and they're like, do I want my kid to go on a play date with this Korean girl? It's not just Korean girl. That was like Korean girl, but with white, well-connected parents who are wealthy, who could one day help you. Like they're making so many calculations. And class is almost like it's like a sliding scale where you can move up class, but there's one of those like glass ceiling, bamboo ceiling, whatever you want to call it. Because I think the big message in my book is that like while Emery is accepted in so many ways because of her money and her parents, there's certain things where they will like badmouth her behind her back and be like, well, that's not really her dad. When someone is saying like, oh, 3 generations of her family went to this prestigious school, they're like, but it's not her blood family. And so it's like, okay, at what point do we start caring about like bloodlines, right? Like, but I think like when I'm trying to tease out, okay, you can't talk about race or you can talk about class without talking about race. It's like all these things are embedded because class is very much other people's judgment of you. And one of the main factors that goes into that judgment is your race.
Disgusting, truly. I mean, that's my response. So, is wealth enough?
No, that's very easy for me to answer. As much as my first book, my second book also gets into this, and it's written from the perspective of someone who is not wealthy. And she is able to surround herself because she's a magazine editor with like beautiful outfits and expensive handbags, and she goes to glitzy, glamorous events so she can cosplay rich almost every day of her life. And even without actually like being rich and finding it empty, even just the cosplaying is empty. So I think that it's not difficult to learn that lesson quickly. Even if like you only have a little bit of money, I think you quickly learn like it didn't change your life all that much.
No. So I guess at the end of the day, you'll always have to return back to yourself and ask yourself the big question, who am I?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's Good way to end the interview. Sanibel, thank you so much for jumping on this call. I know you're really busy, and I hope that, this book will become a success for you. And I know that it will. And I hope that a lot of people like it. There's so much waiting for you.
Oh, thank you, Kim. It was so much fun talking to you. This was such a great conversation. I love being able to talk to someone about the actual characters, and I appreciate so much that you read it.
Identity is both inherited and discovered. We're born into a name, a culture, a set of expectations, some spoken, many unspoken. But over time, we begin to uncover who we truly are through experience, through loss and love and friendship and intimate moments behind the curtains where no eyes judge us. True identity, the kind that brings us to our deepest self, cannot be bought. It can be granted by status or shaped by what others expect of us. It's something we create slowly, intentionally, through what we choose to believe in, what we choose to confront or deny, what we value, and what we decide is worth protecting. It is when we step fully into that truth that we discover a home within our own body, our own story, our own skin. Until then, we search. And when we finally arrive, we'll know by the sound of our voice speaking clearly for the first time. Until next time, keep asking the questions that matters.